Hey everyone, welcome back to Brian's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail, and today's case takes us to the beautiful state of Colorado, more specifically in and around Breckenridge, Colorado, and Guanella Pass. But unfortunately, this story is unbelievable, and a night that started on January 6th of 1982 that the papers initially called a miracle rescue was actually nothing of the sort. And looking at the maps, this area is sort of in the central northern part of Colorado. It's a very mountainous area, and Breckenridge is a beautiful town. And this was back in the early 80s, and it was commonplace for people to hitchhike. And just keep that in mind because it plays a big role in this sad story. But on the night of January 6th, 1982, a man by the name of Lee Phillips, who was a 30-year-old mechanic, had driven over the top of this pass, and he had gotten stuck. There was a huge snowstorm. He was in a little pickup truck, and he got stuck in a snowdrift. And while he was up there, he flashed an SOS with his headlights from his truck. And by just random chance, a plane that was flying over was low enough and saw the SOS and was able to tell the pilot, who radioed in to the local police and search. And they went up to the pass and they found him. And he was in his truck, intoxicated. They questioned him. They said, well, why would you come up here? And he said, oh, thought I'd go over the pass. And he had a bruise on his face. And at the time, he explained that the bruise on his face was because he had gotten out of his truck to go to the bathroom because he didn't know how long he was going to have to be there. And he was blinded by the snow. And when he came back, he ended up hitting his head into the corner of his truck, which, of course, was complete fabrication, and you're going to understand why when we get more into this story. But the authorities that rescued him, they got him down off of the mountain, and that was pretty much the end of it, except for the papers that labeled this a miracle rescue, because so many things kind of had to, what are the chances of this plane flying over and seeing the SOS? This is the man, this is what he looked like at the time of this incident. And that was pretty much the end of it as far as what happened to him that night. But that same night, January 6, 1982, two young women mysteriously disappeared. Annette Cheney, who was only 22 years old at the time, and Bobby Joe Oberholzer, who was only 29 years old at the time, and they were both thought to have been hitchhiking near Breckenridge, Colorado on the night of January 6, 1982. But I'm going to talk about the details of the case and the investigation, and then go through the details of the investigation and how they eventually put this all together. On the morning of January 7th, 1982, the remains of a woman was found about 5 miles south of Breckenridge, Colorado, and she had been shot twice, and the only clues at the scene were a set of house keys and one orange sock. Now, they knew that the keys belonged to her, but the orange sock didn't. It wasn't until 6 months later, and roughly 13 miles away, that the remains of another woman were found. She had also been shot with the same weapon, and police also were stunned when they found that she was wearing the matching orange sock. The police knew that they had both been killed on the same night by the same man because it was the same weapon, and they were sure that their prime suspect was Bobby's husband, Jeff Oberholzer, which is just awful what they put this man through. And he said, I quote, "I can only say that I didn't do anything. As a matter of fact, we had just planned several days before that it was time for us to have children. I miss my wife. I did not kill her," end quote. And of course, they kept grilling him, and I can't imagine what this poor man went through. They had only been married for 4 years and they were doing well. Jeff was running an appliance business. Bobby was working as a receptionist. And according to Jeff, on the day that she disappeared, it was a normal day. She left around 7:15 a.m. and she hitchhiked to work, which apparently during that time in that town, everybody hitchhiked to work because it was a way to get to know people and people liked doing it. It was a very small, tight-knit community. So there was no thinking that it might be dangerous. Jeff reported that she called at around 6:30 that evening and told him that she was having drinks with some friends at the local village pub and that she'd be home soon. So Jeff said that he just made dinner and he waited for her to come home, and he eventually fell asleep and he woke up around midnight, and when she wasn't there, he became concerned, but he thought maybe she was just out late, maybe she had had one too many, so he just waited a little bit more time, but she never did show up, and that's when he obviously got very concerned, and he drove into Breckenridge himself to look for Bobby. Her friends told him that she left the bar at around 7:30 p.m. Now at that point, obviously Jeff called the police, reported Bobby missing. They told him that the police told him that it was too early to file a report. So he looked around and then he just went home and waited for Bobby, hoping that she'd come home. Well, the next morning, a farmer who lived 30 miles outside of Breckenridge found Bobby's driver's license just lying on his property. So, of course, Jeff and some of his buddies drove right over to pick it up and figure out what it might be doing there. And that's when they saw her blue backpack in the snow maybe 20 yards away. Jeff immediately knew it was her backpack, and inside the backpack was one of Bobby's gloves, and it looked like there was some blood on some of the things, and he also noticed a few other things. He got a bunch of his friends and he contacted the authorities. They started a search, and roughly 3 hours later, they found Bobby's remains more than 15 miles away from where they found the backpack. Her remains were located in a snowdrift on Guanella Pass south of Breckenridge, and there were footprints in the area, but the only footprints were Bobby's footprints. There was also what looked like a plastic tie around one of her wrists, and it appeared that she had been shot. And the only other clue that they found nearby was a single orange sock. Obviously, Jeff was absolutely devastated, but little did he know that on the same day that she was found, another woman, Annette Cheney, was also reported missing. Now, Annette was working as a cocktail waitress in Frisco, Colorado, and she often hitchhiked to work as well. And the police, from the very beginning of these investigations, knew or thought that they were connected, and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation got involved. Jim Hardicke took over the case, and he questioned Jeff, and he asked him if he knew Annette, and Jeff said he didn't. He said, I don't know who she was, but it was several days after seeing the picture in the paper of Annette that he remembered that he had one time given her a ride and that he had given her his business card. And unfortunately for Jeff, this gave the authorities that even more reason to believe that he was possibly involved. Then on July 3rd of 1982, 6 months after Annette had disappeared, her remains were found. And when they found her remains, they found that she was wearing the other orange sock. And unfortunately for Jeff, his business card was found inside her wallet. So the county sheriff at the time just thought that this was a bullseye and that the connection was obvious, and he obviously was involved in both crimes. Jeff maintained his innocence through all this. He claimed and he told the police that he had picked up Annette one day while hitchhiking, and he had never seen or heard from her since that day. But in the police's eyes, they felt that because they were both known by this one individual, he became their primary suspect. The sheriff at the time, Richard Eaton of Summit County, he said that Annette was last seen in Breckenridge at around 4 p.m. talking to another female, and he believed that she was picked up around 5 p.m. while she was hitchhiking, and this person was the attacker, and he drove her 20 miles south of Breckenridge, took Annette down a short dead-end road, and assaulted her. Based on the evidence, they believe that while Annette was getting redressed, she found one of her socks, put it on, but couldn't find her other sock, and she put on her booties over the foot, and she was running away. She had escaped, and unfortunately, while she was running away, her attacker shot her in the back. It was at this point that the Colorado Bureau of Investigation believed the assailant then drove back to Breckenridge, found his second victim, which was Bobby. He drove Bobby 10 miles south of Breckenridge to a scenic overlook where he attempted to assault her, but she fought back, and when she escaped out of his vehicle, that's when the booty fell off. And the attacker chased her down the road and attempted to catch her, but he couldn't, and when she turned away, he shot her too. During this whole time, Jeff was extremely cooperative with the authorities, and he quoted in saying, "My wife would never have got into a vehicle with just a couple of strange guys." He said that she knew that she could call for a ride if she wanted to, and he said that he believed that she knew someone that they left together with a promise of taking her home. He believed that this person tricked her into getting into the car. And it wasn't until 2 months later, after they found his wife's remains, that they finally agreed to give him a polygraph exam. And of course, he passed it. You know, he told them from the beginning that he was innocent, and he also had an alibi. He said that during the time that all of this was happening, he was at home visiting with a friend, but unfortunately for Jeff, he was unable to produce the witness until December of 1990, when Jeff's friend finally came forward and Sheriff Eden interviewed the man. Now, according to this, he stated that he had been at Jeff's house that night, but the times that he had given him did not match up with the times that Jeff gave him. So there was still some uncertainty, but finally, after years of being under suspicion and being grilled by the authorities and, having lost the love of his life, he finally was cleared as a suspect by the Summit County Sheriff's Department. But the case was obviously still open. Who committed these horrible crimes? A man by the name of Charlie Mccormick, a retired detective, he was working this cold case for years, and he was just trying to figure out what could have possibly happened to these two young, beautiful women. And he never gave up his search. And he wasn't alone. Other private investigators were working the case. And in 2020 and 21, with advancement in DNA and DNA technology, they used DNA from the crime scenes, and they used genetic genealogy, and they submitted those samples from the crime scenes to databases to places like 23andMe, Ancestry.com, and Parabound Nanolabs, and they finally were able to link the DNA to the suspect. And that suspect was Alan Lee Phillips. Yes, the 30-year-old mechanic that was rescued from the mountain that very night. Now he's 70 years old, a father of 3, who was living in Clear Creek during this whole time, right in the Clear Creek County. Once the authorities had gotten confirmation from both the labs and the nanolabs that it was indeed him, they stopped him for a traffic violation on February 24th of 2021, and it was on this day that they arrested Phillips and charged him with kidnapping, assault, murder, a bunch of other charges. His first hearing was on September 13th of 2021. He remains in jail in custody at the Park County Jail, according to the jail records, and he is expected to formally be charged on March 8th of this year. They haven't released much more information because this is an ongoing investigation, and they want to encourage people to keep submitting tips. According to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, records showed that he was previously arrested for burglary and assault charges in 1973, although for some reason those cases were purged in 2002. Of course, now we have a lot more information and we know what really happened that night to those poor women. There is a memorial up where they passed and where these horrible crimes were committed, and that bruise on his face that he said that he had gotten from getting out of his car and getting back in and hitting the car, that was actually a bruise from one of the women fighting back. And the fact that this SOB had been living in this town so close by the whole time, just living his life, going on like nothing had happened is it's just despicable. It's deplorable. And I really hope that this guy gets the max sentence, because, you know, he got to have a life, and these two young women were in their 20s and they were robbed of their future. And this man was rescued off of the top of a mountain by these people that risked their lives. And the people that did the rescuing, they're quoted in saying that they picked the guy straight out of hell. You know, he got mercy, he got saved, he got his life saved, while these other people didn't even have a chance to live. And Jeff Oberholzer, Bobby Joe's husband, he is quoted in saying that the 4-decade wait for justice was just a hideous nightmare. And I just cannot imagine what that poor man went through the whole time, having them believe that it was him. And, you know, he knew he was innocent. And not only that, he lost the love of his life, and they kept pointing the finger at him. I just can't imagine how hard it was for him. Because being accused of something when you know you're innocent, it's one of the worst feelings in the world. And being accused of actually killing your own wife is probably the worst thing that any man could be accused of. And he knew he was innocent. He kept trying to plead with the police. He told them over and over again, and they just had tunnel vision for the longest time. And obviously now they're apologetic, but you know, you can't take back the decades of pain that he went through and all their families went through. The one solace in this case is that the perpetrator was finally caught and he will be punished. And that, I know, can give some sense of closure, but it can't bring back their loved ones. And this guy is just an absolute monster. I mean, and they are believing that he probably had similar crimes in the past. This probably wasn't his first. So they are still researching, investigating, looking for more tips, because they believe him to be a serial killer. And it's just unbelievable, the fact that that airplane flew over right at that point and they were able to radio somebody to go help find this guy and bring him off the mountain. It's unbelievable. It just drives me crazy that he was fortunate enough to get off the mountain after he had committed both of these horrible crimes. And even the people that helped rescue him said the same thing. They just can't believe his luck after doing what he did, and just hope that he gets the max sentence for his horrible crimes. And I hope that they find out all of his other crimes that he may have committed. And I hope he is punished for those as well. My thoughts and prayers go out to the families of these two beautiful women, to Jeff, to all the people that worked so hard to figure out this case. And really, I have no words to express how emotional this is, and how emotional I can imagine it is for Jeff, the families, the fact that, you know, Jeff was constantly being blamed and scrutinized. Meanwhile, this other guy that was reported in the paper as a miracle rescue was the perpetrator and had been living in their town the whole time, just living his life after he committed these horrible crimes. I just wanted to take a moment of silence during the dedication part. I want to thank you all for watching, as always, and please be respectful in the comments if you choose to leave them. Special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music, and I'll see everybody in the next one. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me till the end. And somebody had asked about in one of my previous videos that sometimes the photos are a little foggy or not clear, and that's because they're the photos from the actual time. So like some of the photos in this case are from 1982, and that's just to give you, you know, a sense of what actually happened and make it more real for you. It's not anything else other than that. And I just thank everybody for following along and watching, and all your comments and support. And of course, if you have any feedback, any constructive feedback, I'm all ears. I'm always willing to try harder, correct mistakes, and I just appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. I know this was a very hard and emotional case, but I wanted to present it because the authorities are still looking for tips from the public of cases he might have been involved in prior to this, and they want to have as much information when they go to trial so they can put him away for the rest of his life so he can't harm another individual ever.